Welcome back to Shadowboxing. Today's guest is Andrew Sullivan, who is standing for the Greens for the Fremantle seat of the state election 2013. Andrew, what do you want to do if you've been elected? What do you want to do for Fremantle?
The platform I'm using is one that gets back to the 3 R's, but not the traditional 3 R's. It's the R's of rail, renewables and reclaim, and the last one is reclaiming the streets of Fremantle for our community.
How's that going to happen, reclaiming the streets? First of all, the community couldn't enjoy the streets because they couldn't smoke under the open air. I mean, that's terrorism. It's nothing to do with any Greens, nothing to do with any health. It's just Fremantle Council ruled, following the Perth Council. People couldn't do what they want to do, what they're enjoying. They're not killing anyone on the streets. So what's happening? What's going on?
I think those sorts of changes are what we would call progressive changes. I think you'll find that the majority of the people in the community actually appreciate that, and it's funny now.
They don't say so.
Well,
at all.
Look, they do. When you now see somebody sit down in a cafe when you're eating food and someone sits behind you and they actually light up a cigarette, you really do actually notice it. In the past, you didn't notice it. You just sort of took it for granted because there wasn't anything you could do about it. But I was sitting down the other day with some 2 young kids who were, you know, sort of 6 and 4, I think.
Yeah. And
someone lit up a cigarette, and they went straight to their mum and said, "Mum, can we move, please? Because it's not nice here." So I'd leave it to their judgment every day as to what was appropriate or not in those environments. So they're the future. That's the future that I think they want. So I'm happy with that policy.
How the street getting back to the people? So how do we give back, or you give back the seat to the people?
Well, I mean, other parties talk about law and order, which is not something we particularly like to talk about in that way. For us, reclaiming the streets is much more about not moving people on, but actually putting people back into the streets. It's about creating the vibrancy. It's about recognising that everybody has a right to be there and everybody has a place in society, and being tolerant enough to make sure it's an inclusive environment, but also putting in place some expectations, some clarity about what social norms are, and making sure that there are consequences for situations where people go over that. And we haven't tended to be particularly good at that in our society over the last 30 years because we've become so much more litigious, and the police now only really take action when someone's seriously hurt or there is a serious issue going on. Yeah. So we end up with the riot squad standing on the corner rather than the old-fashioned bobby walking up and down the street or riding their bike. Community policing and community values and community vibrancy is the way we would like to see the reclaiming of the streets.
But Fremantle is dying somehow because you got, you know, many empty shops. Not empty, no one buying anything there, but the space is empty.
Yeah.
How could be that vibrant, Andrew?
Look, retailing is suffering everywhere. It's not a unique situation to Fremantle, and in fact I walked through the central area, the core area of Fremantle just recently, and the core area is actually still largely populated with shops. There are only 1 or 2 shops that are empty, and those are being re-rented. On the periphery there is areas which are certainly suffering, but we already recognise that we need to concentrate the retailing into the core, and that sort of planning is going on. But city centres can't just be about retailing. They have to be about service provision, they have to be about offices, they have to be about living. And so the council that I've been on has been approaching it with a multi-pronged attack of getting more people living in Fremantle, getting more office development in Fremantle, more people working there during the day. That's what will bring the vibrancy back into the core of Fremantle. It's about, you know, critical mass of people. It's not about whether you can buy something or not.
No, but Yeah, but that helps if you can, you know, visit more shops, probably a little bit more to build up the critical mass. What you want.
The shopping is changing. You'll probably see in the future less big boxes like Myer. You will see more service-orientated shops where customers can buy things online. They don't need to go to the physical store. Where they need to go to the physical store is to get help with things, to get services, to get assistance where they can't get that online. It's going to become much more about face-to-face and dealing with individual needs, and that's where retailers need to get smart. And what we're finding is that in high street environments like Fremantle, you actually find the small trader who's the owner-operator of a business actually knows how to give good customer service. They're the ones that are going to be the future of retailing, and there are a lot of those in high street places like Fremantle, whereas the big boxes, places like Birragoon, they're all national brand firms, and they're the ones that are going to basically go online rather than continue to have their doors open.
Yes, maybe. Let's see. Let's go to the second R on the list.
Yep. So the second R was well, the first R, in fact, is rail.
Yes. Rail.
And rail, I mean passenger rail, and I also mean freight rail. Fremantle as a place cannot be sustainable in the longer term unless it is connected to the suburbs to the south and to the east. That's the growth zone of Perth, and we need to be able to get those people in and out of Fremantle. And they're not going to be able to come in and out by car because we don't have the road system. We don't want to knock all the heritage building down to create one. We don't have the car parking for them. And in any case, the cost of fuel in 10 years' time will be so much that they basically won't be able to afford to drive their car to Fremantle. So we need desperately for rail to be constructed to those areas, not just for Fremantle's sake, but actually for community sake as well, because they need that service as well.
So it is light rail in Fremantle on the streets, or what is?
It's not particularly critical as to whether we have heavy rail or light rail. Okay. There will, in my view, there will be good places for heavy rail, not necessarily Fremantle, but other parts of Perth, and other lines will be much better suited to light rail. So let's not lock ourselves into it's one or the other, but we definitely need both of them, and we need them now. We can't say let's plan for them in 20 years' time. We need to shift the priorities of spending to put those things in right now. And in many cases, they will pay for themselves because they lift the value of land and they make the development that occurs around them so much better that it does end up paying for itself. It makes economic sense. Even the Liberals should understand that. It's been very hard to get them to talk about light rail or any sort of rail. They've never built a railway line in this state before, but it's about time they did.
But it's all cost money. Where the money coming from?
Well, that's what they always say, but they sit on and they have the power of a very large budget. It's not about the money, it's about priority, because the money is there. But if you're going to build things like Roe Highway and the Coburn Coast Drive, which collectively cost $1 billion, and those two roads come straight into the middle of Fremantle, but go nowhere once they hit Fremantle, that's $1 billion wasted. That money could build the light rail that we need in that region. So it's not about the money, it's about the prioritisation of what we need in the future.
And the logistics.
The Greens have been the one that have been pushing that. Labor have jumped on board and it's fantastic. But that's what the Greens do, is they change the conversation to what the community need is, and hopefully governments and big parties follow.
The missing R.
Renewables.
Yes.
Well, look, there's no hiding that the Greens are, been pushing renewables for a very long time, and probably before the notion of the conversation of climate change really got to everybody's household. There is no real impediment for us having a power grid in Western Australia that is essentially reliant on solar, wind and wave energy. We have enough opportunities to do that, and it is economical, but we need, again, government to shift their thinking and shift the priorities. We already have proposals for a wind farm on Rouse Head, on the north quay of the harbour. It's an industrial environment.
And how big is this wind farm?
It, I think, was around about six of the big windmills, but the technology isn't necessarily locked in. It's really at the ideas planning stage, because some people argue that maybe the traditional turbine wind power isn't the right solution there. But there are new technologies that don't actually have spinning blades. They actually just have sticks sticking up in the air that oscillate, and that technology may well be.
Yeah.
Well, it actually may be better suited for urban areas, whereas the wind turbines might be better suited for places like the one at Rottnest. And then there's wave energy, which is really the untapped one, because that's constant. That's the one that really allows you to deal with base load power.
And where you put the wave energy in Fremantle?
Well, wave energy is very simple. I mean, it's really just a series of platforms and buoys that sit in the ocean that bob up and down as the waves go up and down. So that can pretty well be anywhere as long as it's not in the shipping lanes, and it's pretty unobtrusive.
And the sun?
The sun is pretty easy. Obviously, the Greens are pushing for very large solar farms in places like Kalgoorlie, but even within Fremantle, we have the old Fremantle tip, and that has enough space to put quite a large solar grid. That tip's not going to be used for anything for at least 20 or 30 years, and there's no reason why a solar farm couldn't be put there temporarily and pay for itself in very quick time.
So you think if you get into power and you can manage the wave, the solar and the wind energy in Fremantle, Fremantle can be self-sufficient with energy supply?
Look, it might not be self-sufficient, but again, you know, we ought not worry about the exact version and whether we tick the 100% box. Let's get to 30% and then 40% and 50%. You know, but we've got to make a start. And that's what governments haven't been particularly good at, is making a start, because they've left a whole bunch of impediments and disincentives in the system that make it difficult to get started. We just need to get in there and remove those disincentives and actually prioritise renewables, which are starting to show themselves as actually being more economical than coal. And they're talking now that wind power will leapfrog over the top of gas technology as being the more economical one within a year or two. So, you know, we don't need to be using fossil fuels, whether it's oil or coal or even gas. We certainly don't need fracking.
Andrew, thank you very much. It was nice talking to you.
Thank you.
And good luck for the election. And please come back next week, same time, same channel, Shadowboxing.